It's your boy, the Black World Traveler. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't been to the channel, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And if you like my content after you're done, if you decide to subscribe, share, like. If you give me some likes so I can keep the algorithms going up, so we can keep this channel going. And so today, I see Umar Johnson calling black people pretendians. Like, if you believe that we're pretendians, then, we're never going to agree, brother. So it's like, how can I pretend to be a Native American?
I'm challenging the pretendian community. I pretend to be Indian. I'm challenging the pretendian community. I pretend to be Indian.
When my great-grandmother got pregnant by my great-grandfather, she pushed my great-grandmother out of her canal, out of her vagina, and that's who birthed my great-grandmother. Then my great-grandmother pushed my grandmother out of her vagina, who created my grandmother. And then my grandmother basically went through conception with my mother, and she pushed her out of her vagina. And my mother, she basically had conception with me and pushed me out of her vagina, which makes us all related. So why would I deny that? I'm not going to deny my bloodline. Now, this is a woman. These are the people who gave birth to me through generations. Now, you might not have the same history. So if you don't believe that we're Native Americans, then we just don't agree. But trying to convince us that we're only African, that's some bullshit. When my mother was pregnant with my sister, this is how deep it is. Because, the ancestors always come and visit you. Now, I don't know how it is in your family, but our ancestors in our family come visit us. I've had interactions. I've had guidance from my ancestors, and I could prove it. Now, it's crazy because my mother was pregnant with my sister in 1968. 1968, she was pregnant with my sister. And she called my great-grandmother because this man kept appearing in front of her. This old man kept appearing to her, and he kept coming to her, reaching at her stomach, and she would get scared he would go away. So she called my great-grandmother. She said, Big Mama, this man keeps coming to me. This elderly man keep coming to me, and he coming to me, and he keep singing this song, and he keep reaching at my stomach. And she said, "Oh, that's Pawpaw." She said, "That's your great-great-granddaddy. He's coming to bless your child. So next time he comes and appears to you," she said, "when he touches your stomach, he won't come back. He's just coming to bless your child." So my mother was at home one day, and he appeared, and he came to her, and my mother was scared. She said, "He touched her stomach." He was singing this song, and he touched her stomach. He went away and never came back. And the elders back then, see, people don't understand back, with them not being, with our elders and not being educated back then and being at home, and they weren't going to school. A lot of them had low education. They were teaching the kids who they were, so they were always teaching. You were always been taught who you were. So with Umar Johnson, he's always, for some reason, always thinking that if you're black and you don't embrace Africa, he's always giving Africa a pass. He's saying Native Americans, the Cherokees were own slaves and all this shit. Dude, African people are still enslaving their people. Back in the days, see, how can you give praise to Africa when Africa was the reason why blacks got on ships? There's a reason why African people were the ones who went out to the villages, captured the people, brought them to ships, as y'all say, and then put them on ships and brought them over into America and the other part of the world. So how do you give them a break and give them a pass, but then you start talking about the Cherokee and all these people that own blacks? Like, I'm so tired of hearing this. Like, bro, if you believe that, then believe that. But how are you giving the Africans a pass when, if it wasn't for Africans capturing black people in the first place, we wouldn't be having this situation? The reason why we have the situation where blacks in America is not agreeing because African people in Africa that were brought on slave ships were captured by their own people and put on ships, and they weren't sold, they were traded. There was no currency involved. They traded them for goods, and then they dispersed them all to the Americas. And then the Arabs that enslaved Africans on the east, they dispersed people. But to totally just embrace Africa, like Africa's just all that, but America's nothing, especially everybody in their family and seen they met their elders and their families and know that and met them. And they told them who they were. And they got pictures with them. Because back in the days, Like I say, back in the days, the black families would take their kids back to the South. If you were living in a city where you weren't in the South, like New York or LA or Chicago, a lot of them went back home in the summertime in school, and they would take them back home so they would remember so they would be around their culture and their lineage. So calling people pretenders is like, you know, if you're calling black people pretenders, and that means you're calling our ancestors pretenders, and that means, so it's like pissing on their grave, basically. Basically, you're telling us to piss on our ancestors' graves and just embrace Africa, and that's not it. That's not cool. If you believe you're African, bro, just believe you're African, and we just agree to disagree. But don't disrespect our ancestors who on this land fought as indigenous people and went through all the shit they went through. They went through all this stuff so we can have the voice we have now. Yeah, because a lot of these black people going to school now, they're going to colleges, and now they're being told that we're only African, and everything that our ancestors and all our Native American and our indigenous ancestors told us as kids, as we came up and we met them, we were the ones birthed by these people, and then you want us to deny them? How you want us to deny them and embrace Africa? When Africa still don't embrace us. Africa's only embracing us to come to West Africa because we're bringing money. Because there's so many Africans still escaping, trying to get out of Africa to come over to your westernized countries to try to take care of their families because they're starving down there.
The stories that we've been hearing from the people getting on these boats is stories of savagery in Libya, stories of torture in Libya. People talk about modern day slavery. This feels medieval.
They can shoot people like that. People dying every day. Yeah, Libya is not good.
God save our life because we don't have hope.
If you're there in the car inside, they see you, they go shoot you. Every time they shoot our blacks. That's why you go enter this boat.
Person after person explained why they were there. 20-year-old Divine from Nigeria.
If you come out like we black, they might kidnap you, they will sell you, you will look for money and pay yourself, this kind of stuff.
I see. And is that what happened to you?
Yes.
Were you bought and sold?
Yes, I was sold to somebody.
Many Africans don't travel over here because they can't afford it. That's why a lot of them are going illegally. They're going through the East Africans. They're going through the Sahara Desert, going through that way to go to Europe, or they're coming to or if they do make it over to the Americas, you know, they have a thing called the lottery, and I found this out from other Africans. There's a thing called the lottery that they have in Africa. You put your name in a lottery. If your name gets picked in a lottery in Africa, you get your visa, and then you're allowed to come to America and you're allowed to work. And so that still goes on right now. The lottery in Africa, it goes on. Think about all these people coming over. They're coming over because they know it's here. But going back to the whole thing of being pretendians, come on, man. Stop all that bullshit, man. We're not pretendians. If you don't believe that you're Native American, because Frederick Douglass is supposed to be his relative, and Frederick Douglass called himself an Aboriginal American. He called himself an Aboriginal American. So how is he an Aboriginal American, and you're related to him and you're not? Because if you're not, and if you think you're just African, that's fine. But don't be pissing on my ancestors' graves, telling them that we're all pretending when they were here, and they were the ones that brought us in this earth. Back in the days when we came up, you know, everybody went to church. I don't care what kind of black family you raised in, especially if you're from the South. Most of us went to church, and a lot of times, man, I remember going to church, and I remember a lot of times because I was a musician in church, and I remember a lot of times there would be times where they would do certain songs, and they would sing these certain songs in church, and they would be like, "Don't play no music," because they would sing the songs they sung. Because a lot of the elders in the church, they picked cotton. A lot of them worked in the cotton fields, even in the early 1900s. A lot of the elders that were in the church back then, you know, they used to work in the cotton fields, and they used to, you know, sing these certain, you know, songs, you know, that they would sing with no music, and they would sing these hymns like they sung back in the South, because mostly everybody, you know, in North America that's black, we all had Southern roots, and we all had Native American, and we always talked about our indigenous culture, And the elders will always sing these songs and, you know, talk about how in the South, how they used to, you know, basically pick cotton and you know, work for, you know, for the white people. They had to be like servants and butlers and chauffeurs. And you would hear the stories and they would talk about these things. You would hear about, oh yeah, my grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee, and how, you know, we had to, you know, and how we were raised, you know, on the indigenous side. And what's so sad about it is that now you have black people who are now older, who are educated. Most of the people that were elders back in the churches back in the days, a lot of them didn't go to school past the 7th or 6th grade. A lot of them went from, you know, being a kid, some became mothers at young ages, because back then that's how they did it. You know, you would basically have a daughter, you would teach her how to cook, how to clean, how to raise, how to take care of the kids. They would teach the, you know, the boys to learn how to go hunt and how to go fish and how to go grow, you know, vegetables and fruit in the garden, and they had to do all the outside work. And, you know, that's how they were taught. So a lot of them didn't go to school. They learned how to be, basically do domestic things around the house and you know, basically provide for the family. And so, you know, they always taught, you know, the kids in the future, you know, get your education, you know. The bad thing about it, when the kids got the education, a lot of them start listening to these scholars, and a lot of these scholars start teaching Africanism and, you know, African history. And it's nothing wrong with that. But what's bad about it is that even back in the 70s, when I came up as a kid, Africans and black Americans didn't really see eye to eye. When Africans would come here, they would kind of seclude themselves from us. They really wouldn't be around us. And so we didn't have an understanding. And so a lot of times we said, oh, they don't like us, you know, or, you know, my ancestors didn't walk around, you know, with their titties out. They would say stuff like that, you know. Black people here would say that because black Americans and Africans just didn't have no connection. And we never have had it because even, you know, for blacks being sold off in slavery, you would think that Africans would be more, you know, like, you know, sentimental to us, but a lot of times they weren't. They were like, oh yeah, y'all slaves, whatever, y'all, you know. But, you know, Africa gave their people away and put them on ships and gave them to white people, you know, and then they got harsh treatment there, we got harsh treatment here. And when Africans would migrate here, because black American people, we didn't migrate here, you know. Either we came on our own or we came on slave ships. There were black people that came here thousands of years ago. They came on slave ships. They didn't come on slave ships. They came here, you know, there were Melanesians. People don't realize there were a lot of Melanesians that came from the Melanesian islands in the Pacific that settled here. And if I didn't live in Australia and saw what I saw, I wouldn't have believed it. When I was actually living in Australia, actually went to go visit Australia in '93. I was in the Navy. I went to go visit. I seen a couple of Aborigines. I seen a lot of South Africans. But when I ended up going to visit my friend 6 years later in Cairns, Australia, and I was in Queensland, North Queensland, and I saw all these black people, I was blown away. And then I wanted to learn more. And then they were like, when they saw me, it's, hey, brother, where you from? They would kind of take me around them. And then I ended up moving to Australia the next year because I really wanted to learn more. I was really intrigued about, you know, being in a black country, not knowing that Australia was a black country. And then when I lived in the homes with Aboriginal people who are black, just like us, we were so similar in culture. We were so similar in the way we did things, you know, I mean, the good and the bad things, like, you know, them drinking and smoking weed. It was like being here at home. They did the same thing. And, you know, we party and music loud, and, you know, it was crazy just living in the society of Aboriginal and Islander people. And then we had a sit down and we talked about the similarities. I was telling them how similar they were to us and how we don't see nothing about them. Like they were educating me on their cultures in there. There were so many different cultures, especially black and Polynesian and Melanesian cultures in that region I'd never heard of. So that's what made me kind of move there. When I came back and came to America, I had to learn more about, I started learning more about our travels because my mother always told us who we were. You know, what's sad about it is that my story, the main focus on this video is how the black American is the only race of people who totally went against what their ancestors taught them who they were. Like, we were taught that. When I came in school, the church, back in the 70s and 80s, Everybody bragged about how they had roots in the South, how they had Native American, how their grandmother was a full Cherokee Indian or Blackfoot, or their granddad, or you would give the whole, everybody. I didn't know not one person in America that I met that were born and raised in America that did not have Native American roots. No one ever talked about the indigenous, not being indigenous to America. We always bragged about it. We've always bragged about how, you know, yeah, my grandmother told us this, or I met my great-great-grandmother. Man, she had long hair, and she had red skin, she had dark red skin, and she was beautiful. You know, and I got cousins, you know, you see these cousins and you see like relatives in your family where the girls had natural curly hair and, you know, straight hair. This is what we witnessed all through our lives. You know, even when you lived in the inner city, you know, because a lot of blacks moved to the inner cities back in like California, you know, it's like to Oakland and LA, they moved to New York, they moved to Chicago. You would see these pretty girls with this long hair and you're like, damn, what do you mix with? Oh, my grandmother's Cherokee. It was just common. That was common. And we were proud of it. And, you know, to be real, man, a lot of blacks in America that were born here, we were kind of angry at Africa because, you know, we always say, man, Africa gave us away. Like Africa sold us to the white man. That's how we always looked at Africans. Because a lot of Africans would come to America and they would resent us. Like, oh yeah, y'all different. Y'all not the same. And we weren't. And for a while, you know, the black American and the African just did not see eye to eye because of that. Because it's not that we had a problem with them. They had a problem with us saying, oh, y'all don't know who y'all are. But, you know, so we clashed a lot. And even my African friends that I know, they even told me their parents were ignorant. Like, man, our parents were just ignorant. You know, they were taught to not, you know, trust y'all and believe y'all. You know, don't be around you. They tell their kids don't marry you. I mean, this is what Africans were telling me all the time. I got African friends now. Not that they hate us. It's just that they didn't trust us. They didn't understand us. So a lot of times they just wouldn't want to be around us. And so now all of a sudden, everybody black American wants to be African now because now Africa's popular. But what's bad about it, there's nothing wrong with being African. There's nothing wrong when you totally deny what your ancestors told you. Bro, if you go to any African, their ancestors told them who they were, where they were from, and they speak the languages, right? You go to any Asian, you go to like East Indians or Chinese, Japanese, Samoan, Tongan, no matter where they're from, all their elders told them stories. That's how they knew who they were, by the stories. Same as the black Americans. We were all told by our elders who we were, where we were from. That's why soul food was a big thing we ate, because that was our meal. Like we cooked a certain way. So that's why we had Thanksgiving. We never celebrated Thanksgiving for the real meaning, because we know it was our people got slaughtered. And we all know that we have Native American blood. We know that. We all know we're indigenous. We have indigenous blood. We know that. And it was sad about it. Even if you have African blood, there's no reason to deny your Native American and your indigenous side. What gets me is this. You got people like, Umar Johnson made a joke about it. Yeah, these people talking about they're Indian, these black folks, he made some kind of joke. It's not a joke, because I don't know where he's from, but most black people that I know, we have ancestors that are Native American. We all have them, bro. Even in the East Coast, even in Connecticut, there's black people. Like ODB was talking about, he was from a certain tribe. Like a lot of us knew it, but then a lot of black people, what they do, you know, after the ancestors told us who we were, they tell you who you were. They go to the photo album, they show you relatives and everything. They get into these religions, you know. And then they say, well, we're African. Then they just deny everything that the ancestors said. We are the only race of people that deny our original identity in America. We're the only ones. There's no other race that does that, bro. Even Africans don't do that. Their ancestors everybody tells them who we were. Our ancestors told us who we were. Our elders and our families, they told us who we were. The black people, black Americans go get educated, learn about all this stuff about Africa. And as bad as all the anger we had towards Africa selling us off, and the ones that they did bring here, you know, we were resentful. We were upset because we'll never know what it is to be African to this day. We would never know what it is to be African. The only way you're going to know how to be African, if you move to Africa and then your kids are born there and then they're in the school system, they'll be African as far as like nationality, but as far as culturally, not being brought up in an African family and learning your tribe's language will never have that. I don't care how many DNA tests you take. And that's another thing, the DNA test, I don't know why so many black people are falling for that. Because there's been proven that these people are lying. I mean, these DNA places are totally lying to people. You cannot take your spit from your mouth and trace your roots and your tribe. Come on, bro. You got to be that. People are that stupid to really believe it.
Thus, these tests should not be seen as determining the race or ethnicity of a test taker. They cannot pinpoint the place of origin or social affiliation of even one ancestor with exact certainty. They cannot pinpoint the place of origin or social affiliation of even one ancestor with exact certainty.
And what's sad about it is that they want to know their African side. Bro, you can learn your African side, but you can't learn it that way. Because the DNA is so fraudulent, bro. Every company has been criticized and has been caught in lies, talking about how you can't tell where you're from. This guy was describing how they assign you to a certain group of people by your genes, but it's not proof. It's just something they assign you to. Now you can do DNA and you can trace your mother, your father, you can trace your cousins. You can trace that way. You can trace the people that you were birthed from, but you cannot trace a tribe and where you're from in another country. You cannot do that. That's impossible. I had biology class. I wasn't the smartest kid, but I know that it's false, and it always has, and they're proving it. I can show you.
These DNA tests for ethnicity are entertainment value only.
William Gilliland is a biology professor at DePaul. He says DNA kits can be great for connecting family members and finding relatives, but the science for ethnicity testing isn't as concrete.
There's nothing that confident for ethnicity. There's no diagnostic nucleotide. You can say this person is from Europe, this person's from Africa.
When I handed Vi the certificate, she got extremely emotional about it. She wept, and it meant so very much.
People want to believe.
They want to believe they've gotten an answer.
And it's not fair of us to let them believe that we're giving them certain answers, because scientifically, we just can't.
Hank Greeley is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
he
the largest...
He didn't exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns.
About yourself.
Our DNA.
And that's the rub. This business of genetic genealogy is fraught with limitations. For one thing, it can only provide information about a tiny fraction of our ancestry. Because we get half our DNA from our mothers and half from our fathers, almost all of our DNA gets shuffled and remixed every generation, making it impossible to trace what comes from whom. There are just 2 bits of DNA that remain pure: the Y chromosome, which passes directly from father to son, and something called mitochondrial DNA, which passes unchanged from mother to child. Hank Greeley, a law professor at Stanford University, has studied this new field. He worries that people don't realize just how many ancestors they actually have.
8 generations ago, both you and I had 256 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents.
Wait, you're saying that if you go back 8 generations, we have 256 great-great-great-grandparents?
Yes, it doubles every generation. So you've got 2 parents, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, and it adds up fast. It adds up so fast, in fact, that if you go back 20 generations, you've got over 1 million grandparents.
1,048,576 to be exact. And in each generation, DNA testing can provide information about only 2 of them.
So you could be Peruvian on your mother's 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 side, Japanese on your father's 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 side, Swedish on everything else.
And you'll never know.
And you'll never know the Swedish from the Y chromosome or the mitochondrial DNA.
And the thing is, black people stop being so naive. Black Americans got to stop being so naive. No other country, no other people in the world do this but us. Oh, I'm African. I found that I'm Ethiopian or I'm this and that. Bro, you're going off a thing where they assign you. They assign it to you. There's not even no proof. They assign to you a certain tribe or a certain location in Africa or a certain, and then it just goes crazy about it. This is what really got me. People saying, well, Native Americans came from Siberia, they're Asian, right? Like, have you ever seen Native Americans in most of the Americas? Like they said, well, they're Asian. Bro, most of the Native Americans in America are not even fair-skinned. Even in North America. Bro, I've traveled. I just came back from Panama. The Indians there are dark as me. Bro, I went to Colombia. The Indians are as dark as me. Bro, you go to the Brazil. The people are brown skinned. They don't look nothing like an Asian with slanted eyes, bro. They're dark skinned people. And, you know, another reason why we're not going to agree on a lot of this stuff, and I'm not trying to, you know, debate with nobody, but the Pangea, the belief of the Pangea is the reason why a lot of people are feuding too, because they said, well, the land split. Dude, the land is always moving. The land has been moving. Man was traveling when the land was moving. That's why you have earthquakes and tsunamis, because the earth, she's always moving. She's always reshaping herself. All them years that man has been on earth, that's the reason why everybody was not just from Africa, because before Africa was a continent, the Pangea was here. The land was all in one. And man was already traveling across the land. When the land split, that's what gave the continent. That's what created the continents. And so, so many different theories have been made. That's why everybody don't agree on it. But man, you can't tell me that everybody was not navigating the earth before the land split. The land split. Man was already in certain places, and you have right now. You got in Africa where the land is splitting right now in Africa right now. Dude, the thing is that I'm not trying to debate with nobody and say that I'm right, but my biggest thing is that why are black Americans trying to just totally go against what their ancestors told them? I don't get that, man. Why are you going against what your ancestors taught you? Your ancestors are the ones that brought you in the world, like your great-great-grandmother. I asked my mother, did you meet, she said, and who did you meet in the family? Did you meet our great-great-grandmother? She said, yeah, your great-great-grandmother was a full-blood Cherokee Indian. She said she had long hair. She was like 100-something years old when she met her. She said she was beautiful. And that was my big mama. Big mama is my great-grandmother. That was her mother. And my great-great-granddad was, she said he was Blackfoot Indian. And I thought he was Choctaw. He was Blackfoot. And she was telling me how, you know, because back in the days, you know, you made it within your tribe. And my mom said, well, granddad, they used to call him granddad, he basically had a baby with my great-great-grandmother and her sister. That just happened back then, you know, because they lived on tribes. It was very concentrated, you know, on land where they were in certain land masses. So they were in a concentrated space, and that's how it happened back then. So, yeah, so my great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee Indian, and that's who my great-grandmother, my great-grandmother was, her dad was Blackfoot, her mother was Cherokee. Now, why would I deny that and not claim that, but then go claim Africa? And then just totally forget what my ancestors taught me, because what happening now, a lot of black people in America are totally going against what their elders said, because their elders are gone now. So they're disrespecting the elders while they're dead, which is pretty messed up. And what's crazy about it, I watched a lot of Native Americans online doing their DNA tests. This was crazy. They're getting their DNA test done, and they're 90% Native American. Now you're saying they're Asian, right? And they're from Siberia, and they're Asian, and then, but they get their DNA test done, and they're 90% Native American. Almost every Native American was 80 to 90% Native American. And then, but black people take our DNA, and we came here too, yeah, thousands of years ago. Now, if they were Asian by descent, and they came here thousands of years ago, shouldn't they show a higher percentage of Asian blood? They don't. They're showing 1% Asian, 2% Asian, 1% European. They're all showing that they're 90% Native American, and then they're 2% Asian or 1% Asian. And then we take our test, we're 80% African. And we're like, even though you've met your great grandmother and your great great grandmother, and you know that's your bloodline, you've been doing everything that you did in that culture. They explained it to you. How are you having no Native American, or you're 2% Native American, and United is 8% African? If they came from Asia, how in the hell they have no Asian blood? They should be showing 70, 80% Asian if they're from Asia, right? If we're African, we're showing 80, 90% African. And you've seen your bloodline, you've met your ancestors. You've met the people who basically were on these, who died in these revolts. Because even when, then people say, well, Native Americans own slaves too, own blacks too. Bro, African people were the ones that captured African people to come over here and around the world. So people are just discredit, won't give Africa no kind of, even black American people won't give Africa no fault at what they did. They keep saying, well, the Africans, yeah, they had to go out there and personally hunt us down, capture us, and put us on ships. But then when the Native American, the Native American, they enslaved blacks too. Yeah, but the blacks revolted against them because they were in the same tribe. They weren't getting the same treatment like the Europeans were, but they were still enslaved. They were blacks that enslaved blacks. Okay, that was part of happening. But why are you why do black Americans always give an excuse and kind of just say, well, when you say the Africans, captured us and put us in slavery, they get a pass. But then when a Native American or another black man had you as a servant or a slave, you can't trust him because he turned his back on you. I mean, bro, if you can't see that the Africans turned their back on us when they did capture the ones they captured and put them on ships, then something's wrong with you. But black people in America, a lot of them just want to be African so bad now, they just go totally against what our ancestors taught us. They go totally against of what, even if Africa had, we were the ones that did put on ships were the less desirable ones. They physically went out there and captured them people and then put them on ships and then send them all around the world, but you give them a pass. But you're going to knock the Native American and the black man for taking them in and having them in service as slaves. And say, well, man, how they turn their back on us. And so, yeah, we'll never agree. As long as you got these scholars teaching African history, yeah, they'll teach all this history about Africa, but they'll always ridicule the Native American and the black man here. If they did, take some blacks in as slaves, and all of a sudden you want to knock them, but you're going to give Africa a pass. And now you're telling everybody, oh, go home to Africa. That's your home. Bro, I'm going to go to Africa just to visit, but I'm going to be real. When I went to Australia, and I went there and actually saw what I saw in Queensland, I felt more at home in Australia because I met people that looked like me, that moved like me, that act like me. Then I found out that there were a lot of people from that region in the Pacific that came to the Americas because it's just a straight shot. When you're in the Pacific Islands, you're in the Pacific Islands already. You have Polynesians, Melanesians, and Micronesians. They're all in the Pacific. All of them came from Asia. The Polynesians, the Melanesians, and the Micronesians all came from Asia, and then they migrated down through the Pacific, and then they found the lands they were on, and they made their homes there. And a lot of them came across. A lot of them came across. So when you go to South America and Central America, all the Native Americans down there, they look like Micronesians. They look like Micronesians. They're brown like Micronesians. They look just like Micronesians. And if you ain't never seen a Micronesian, you're talking about people from like Guam, Was it Tahiti? No, I think Tahiti. Yeah, Tahiti. Either they're Pacific Islands or Micronesians. I know, like Marshall Islanders. They're from Micronesia. You know, what is it? Mariam Island. They're all Micronesian. And so when you go down south in South America, they look like Micronesians. Like they're brown like Micronesians. Some got standard eyes, some got round eyes, but they all look alike. So you know that there were people on this earth that in this area before the white man even came to America. A lot of us was already here. What's sad about it is that black Americans, for some reason, are the only ones that's totally going against what their ancestors and what their elders told them. And they're just embracing Africa now. And it's a slap in the face to our dead ancestors who actually built this country, went through a lot of the mishaps in this country, who lost a lot, who were treated like crap. You know, they were the ones that we were able to be educated now. We were able to, you know, be homeowners, and we were able to get ourselves, you know, in schools. And I mean, they were the ones that were totally against the integration thing because, I mean, not the integration, they were against the marches. They weren't really against the integration. They were more against the marches of fighting for integration because, you know, yeah, you might think like, okay, that generation wanted to be, as they say, equal. And so what's sad about it is that, yeah, you got what you wanted, but then once that came, you started seeing black people turn their backs on our history, our lineage, everything that we believed in, from our food down to our practices, to everything that we were brought up. People became Muslim, people became Israelites, people became black Israelites, people became 5%ers, people became Orthodox Muslims, became Christians, some became atheists, like everybody, you know, the Zulu Nation, a lot of people came, you know, got into different organizations. And so they just say all these black people in America, they didn't know what they was talking about. They were just, you know, ignorant and colonized. But there were actual people who lived on this earth who actually gave birth to us and taught us who we were. And then all these black educated people are following the scholars. If you're not a Umar Johnson or Dr. Ben, basically you know what the fuck you're talking about. That's what they're basically saying. And it's crazy because it's irritating to me because I know people hands off. I got a lot of friends hands off who are like, oh, I did my DNA test and I found I'm this and that. But what about what your ancestors told you? What about the people who birthed you, who actually gave you the right to do what you can do now because they fought for it? These are the people who actually, like I said, in them churches, when they was telling them stories in them churches and they were singing those hymns and they were talking about, when you talk to them people about, I talk about to our elders about, you know, what they went through. They would tell you the stories and why they sung those songs. You would hear the songs. They would sing these songs. Guide me over, thy great Jehovah. They would sing these songs. They sung these songs in the fields when they were sharecropping or when they were picking cotton. And these are elders that we met in our churches in the 70s, in the 80s. These are the people who basically told us, oh yeah, they all talked about them. Every single elder talked about their native, how they had the native indigenous blood. They all talked about it. And it's so funny, it's like, people say you just don't want to be African. Bro, these are the people that taught me. Why would I go against the people who taught me? They know what they're talking about. And a lot of these educators are saying that they were just ignorant. They didn't know what they were talking about. These are the people that brought you in the world. These are the people that lived on these reservations. They got kicked off the reservations. They got moved off in the Trail of Tears and had to go down to the South. Had to start life all over. These are people who lived on Black Wall Street in the all black neighborhoods, who saw them get burnt down, and St. Louis and Chicago. You know, black people we had communities all over the United States that were all black owned with our own money and our own businesses. They all came from the South. They all were indigenous blacks in this country. And they were all their communities were burnt down and they destroyed us, everything that we had. And now we have this. Everybody want to be African now. Now everybody want to totally deny what our ancestors taught us. Now everybody's African and pro-African. And the thing is, African people feel a certain kind of way. I ain't gonna lie, I told my friends, I would never be African like you, bro. Even if I have the bloodline and the color, I would never know what it is to be African, because African people, when you learn, even if they're just African, most people around the world, when you're around them, you know you know the languages. Look, you can go to any Samoan, you meet a Samoan or a Tongan. Most Samoans know their language. The kids know the language. If they don't know it fluently, a lot of them teach their kids the language. That's their identity. You know, if you're from an island, wherever you're from, the kids should know. I mean, some parts, I ain't gonna lie, in the Aboriginal community, some of the Aborigines are not teaching the language to the kids. A lot of them were, you know, through the stolen generation, a lot of them were they weren't allowed to speak their dialect. So a lot of them did go on to a different, just to speak in English, because a lot of them, you know, even the Native Americans, a lot of the indigenous Americans here, when they put them in boarding schools, they weren't allowed to speak their languages no more, which is kind of messed up because that's their identity. But one thing I like about the Pacific and the Southeast Asia and all them places, when you go to those places in Asia and you go to Africa, all the kids still know their dialect where they're from, no matter where they're from. They all know their dialect. They know their history. They know their languages. They know the traditions. And so that's why we are who we are today. We are the people who basically, a lot of Africans, you know, didn't trust us, you know, because of how they were taught. You know, what's so crazy about it, man, is that I'm going to West Africa. I want to go to East Africa, but, you know, people tell me, you should go to West Africa. That's where our roots are from. But I know that a lot of Americans go to West Africa. Now, this is what I just heard. I'm not too sure about it. I'm going to go on my own self this summer, just go see it myself. I really don't care what somebody else's experience is. But I know they were saying that they were being called a kata. I hear a lot of people saying that some Africans call them a kata, which means stray cat. Like, basically, you don't have a home. So I don't know how true it is. I mean, if people are calling you a kata, it's kind of messed up. But I mean, we are. If you want to be real, man. If you go to America, you go to Africa, and they call you a kata, you shouldn't they're just getting upset because we are. When they gave us away, we really don't have no identity there. We have an identity right here in America. There's nothing wrong with our lineage that we have here. But so many black people want to just go to Africa and embrace Africa because we've had a lot of bad experiences in America. But the experiences in America that we're having are not nearly as bad as in Africa. Do you know how many Africans are escaping out of Africa to get a better life? Bro, Africans are escaping, going across, they're taking women and children. I did a video on that, man, showing how these African people are going, they get on these ships, they're going through the desert, they're trying to get out of Africa because a lot of them are starving. They know if they get to America or they get to Europe and they can get through the border, that they can do better for their lives. Africa's not doing a good job with, you know, all the resources they have there. They're not doing a good job taking care of their people financially. There are people out there starving. They shouldn't be starving because it's one of the richest continents in the world. You know, so I don't know, man, but like I said, I just have a problem with, you know, black people in America just turn their backs on their ancestors and their elders. And so if you guys like this video, please like, share, subscribe. You can give a donation if you like to keep me going. The donations are appreciated. If you want to donate, help me keep going, because I'm really trying to not really debate with people. I just want to say, don't deny and don't overlook the people who brought you in this world, the ones who actually gave us and taught us our history, especially me being back in the 70s, how everybody taught about their native ancestry and how we, you know, and our indigenous, you know, identity to this country. You know, if you were African and made it with a Native American, or if you were indigenous that was already here, we're indigenous, man. You can't deny that, man. If you even have, like, if you mix a black with a white, you're still a black person. That makes you who you are. So if I'm a black man that made it with Native Americans, I know our family did. Why would I deny that? This is who I am. My ancestors were the ones who were here. They're the ones who did the work and put the work in for us. They're the ones that birthed me. If it wasn't for my great-great-grandmother being she was a Cherokee, and my great-great-granddad being a Blackfoot, I wouldn't even be here because of them. Because, look, my great-great-grandmother is full-blood Cherokee. Her husband where my great-great-granddad was with Blackfoot. That makes my great-grandmother a Blackfoot and Cherokee who birthed my grandmother, and then my grandmother birthed my mother birthed me. I'm from the same lineage. Why would I deny that? Why would I totally deny the people who made me? That don't make any sense to me. But if you like the content, please Like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy, AJ the Black Boy Traveler. I am out.